Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Play Action Podcast. Dave Fair alongside Joe Fortenbaugh and Matt Brown. It's week number 10 of the NFL. And, gentlemen, 4 teams on bye this week. We've got the Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, Oakland Raiders, and the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, 3 of those 4 are potential teams that you are interested in as we head deeper into the season. Joe, you're up first on this. I mean, as we're looking around here, we've got a couple of powerful teams that are taking a bye this week. Is that going to affect the way that you look at this board?
Philadelphia is a team that I would certainly wonder coming off the bye how they're going to respond. A lot of times people will say that if you believe in momentum, if you believe in hot runs like this is the last thing you want to have happen at this point, is to go on a break after you've been kicking the tar out of the rest of the National Football League. Under Andy Reid, this team was fantastic coming off the bye. You're going to want to pay attention to that with the Chiefs in 2 weeks. Nobody comes off additional rest better than Andy Reid. For the Oakland Raiders, I'd be very concerned about how much I'm willing to buy into them. The next we see them, they will be in Mexico City against the New England Patriots. And quite frankly, I don't think that win at Miami is indicative of them having turned the corner. Jay Cutler, who's been having an awful season, tore them apart. Jay Cutler's played damn near 150 games in his career. That was his 12th highest quarterback rating, and he's having a miserable season. That should tell you everything you need to know about this defense, Matt.
Yeah, they did get Devontae Parker back. That was a big help to him there for sure. But, yeah, I mean, Jay Cutler, just absolute complete garbage there. And listen, this Eagles team, if you were a doubter before in any way, shape, or form, I don't know how you can be now. Now, listen, I understand Denver is certainly not world beaters by any stretch of the imagination, but every facet of that game just absolutely beat down. I mean, just a complete and utter beat down when you look at that. I'm a little on the other side of this Chiefs team than you are. I saw a bunch of leaks here. This defense is not good. It is bad. And if they don't figure out how to stop these other teams, it doesn't matter how good that offense is whatsoever. And let's talk about that offense a little bit. Only 9 rushes for Kareem Hunt. Didn't force the ball to their playmaker in Tyreek Hill, other until that fluke weird play at the end of the half and everything. Like you said,
check down Hail Mary. First ever check down Hail Mary.
Yeah, they were calling it the Hill Mary because, Tyreek Hill to the Hill Mary. But listen, this Chiefs team, like you said, they do have a bye to try to get things right there, but they're going to need to get some things right because they have some holes to plug for sure.
Yeah, the AFC West has all sorts of holes to plug. Speaking of that, Matt, AFC South even in more disarray. We'll talk about both of those conferences as we dive into it here. Here we go. So the early games first up, and this is a double-digit favorite. Pittsburgh is on the road as a double-digit favorite going up against Indianapolis. Total is 43 in this one. Matt, is there any news or notes that we need to know about here?
Yeah, I mean, you got the Steelers coming off of a bye here. They did not move Martavis Bryant, so he's going to be there. I don't think that really changes things. I think Juju Smith-Schuster's basically that number 2 receiver there. The Colts, pretty good health for them, but they're coming off an outright win, Dave. The Colts, an outright win as 6-point dogs there. Listen, this Colts team, scrappy. I like what I see in this team. I mean, they're not very talented, but they're fun to watch. They're fun to watch.
All right. So we talk about all these lines and how it's easy to keep up with them if you go to SBRodds.com. That's who's bringing you today's Play Action podcast. You can see all the lines changing in real time, the totals changing in real time if that's the case as well. And of course, right below us is where you can find the link to actually go to SBRodds.com. That's also the link where you can subscribe, rate, and review. And, of course, for this podcast, thumbs up, thumbs down. Tell us what you think in the comment section below. Joe, over to you. Should the Steelers be double-digit favorites on the road against the Colts?
Yeah, based on public perception, it doesn't surprise me one bit. But how often are you going to make money over the long term laying double digits on the road in the National Football League? That's just a bad business strategy. This line is as high as 11.5 at 5 dimes right now. No way in any way, shape, or form I'd be laying double digits with Pittsburgh at Indy. It's not because Indy's a better team than we expect. It's not because Pittsburgh can't get it done. It's just a bad business decision to get involved with something like this. So you've got to ask yourself, how do you want to play it? Do you like the idea of the Colts double digit at home? Yeah, I'm intrigued by that, especially when you throw a total out there around 42 points. Vegas is telling us that they are anticipating a low scoring game. So you're telling me I can have 11.5 points in my pocket with the home team in a low scoring football game? That, Matt, is something that I'm going to find very intriguing.
Yeah, here's the difference with this. Basically, this Colts team is they played 3 pretty good teams this year, 3 teams that you would consider to have good defenses as well. The Rams, the Seahawks, and the Jaguars. The Rams beat them by 37. The Seahawks beat them by 28, and the Jags beat them by 27. So whenever they play teams that can actually score a little bit, or when they play teams that have good defenses, Jacoby Brissett's just not getting it done. And like we said, it's just a talent deficient team, right? I mean, outside of T.Y. Hilton, and when he gets up against physical corners, he can't really get it done. You look at this Steelers defense, they are playing some ball, man. This Steelers defense, I know everyone talks about the offense here when you think of the Steelers, but this defense is one of the top 10 defenses in basically every single statistical category in the NFL. For me, I think the Steelers can cover this number, man. And this is one of those things where you just look at basically how the Colts have played against good teams so far this year, and they just get blown out. I think the Steelers, coming off of a bye here, certainly are going to get things together a little bit better than even we saw last time we saw them. I'm going to take the Steelers here.
Yeah, so Le'Veon Bell, obviously a problem for everyone that he faces, but then at the wide receiver position, I mean, is there anyone that has a better receiving core than the Pittsburgh Steelers right now? And then at corner, the Indianapolis Colts with Malik Hooker going down, and then Vontae Davis finding the bench. It's like they've got all sorts of issues there. But what I always worry about, Matt, is garbage time numbers, right? So let's say that the Steelers get up 2 touchdowns, and then they just sort of allow the Colts to drive down the field and sort of lazily put a touchdown in with 2 minutes left to go. That's what I worry about. And I think that's what Joe's talking about as well with these double-digit favorites on the road. You're saying that you think it's going to be a blowout for the Steelers?
Yeah, but listen, that's always a factor, right? And that's why it's scary whenever we look at these there is a lot of parity in the NFL, and then we've seen it time and time again. So you look at this number right here at 10. Steelers are up by 17, like you talked about. You can see the scenario playing out in your head right now. The Colts get the ball back. The Steelers drop into soft defense. They allow T.Y. Hilton to just dink and dunk all the way down the field, and then they score that garbage touchdown and you push. If that's the case for me, so be it. I think the Steelers go in here and blow the doors off.
All right, next up is Minnesota at Washington, another early game, 10 o'clock in the West, 1 o'clock in the East. Minnesota on the road at Washington. It's a pick 'em in some places. That's over on 5 dimes. Otherwise, they're laying a point, even a point and a half over on Bovada right now. 42.5 is the total in this one. You can also find it at 42 in a couple of places. Matt, is there anything we didn't know about either of these teams going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, another team coming off a bye here in the Vikings. If you buy into these teams off the bye thing, Vikings contemplating putting Sam Bradford on IR. They actually activated Teddy Bridgewater there. Dave, your boy, Teddy B.
Teddy B, maybe coming back, although Case Keenum has been the hot hand. Here's the thing, though, with the Vikings. If you recall last season, 5-0, then they go into a bye week and come back and just blow it in epic proportions. So I don't know if a bye week is a good thing for Minnesota.
Yeah, and then on the Redskins side of things, I mean, they're just an infirmary, yet somehow getting it done. Jordan Reed, Jamison Crowder, both guys going to be questionable. Defensive tackle Arthur Jones dislocated his shoulder. So all kinds of things going on there for the Redskins, and still able to get it done. So we will see how this goes with this Vikings team.
All right, Joe, over to you. Who should be the favorite in this one? Washington at home or Minnesota on the road?
Minnesota for one reason and one reason only. And I'm going to play the Vikings, and I'm also going to play the Browns this week. And it's because of the following trend, which I've been getting rich off this season. Since 2015, teams that play in London, then serve their bye, come off that bye, they're 11-0-1 against the spread. We've had it 3 times this year. You had the Saints come off the London game, then their bye week, then they hosted Detroit. They pounded the Lions. 2 of them took place last week. Arizona at San Francisco, no problem there. The Rams at the Giants, no problem there.
You can't really chalk that up to teams coming off a bye off the London. They played 2 absolute dumpster fires of teams, right? I mean, like,
yeah, but the Vegas point spread counteracts that. The Vegas point spread counteracts the dumpster fire. The Colts are a dumpster fire, but they're catching 13 points this week. That's the point of the spread. I know you hate these trends, but this thing has not lost.
It was 2.5. 2.5 points there for the 49ers. I mean, 2.5 points. That spread was just off. That spread was off. Even with Drew Stanton, at quarterback, would you not agree that the Cardinals are easily 6-point favorites in that game?
No, I wouldn't. I would say it's 2.5 or 3 because it's Drew freaking Stanton. He's been around his entire career. There's a reason he doesn't have a starting job anywhere.
It's not CJ Beathard. I'll put it that way.
You and I differ greatly on these trends, and I completely respect your position. I'm going to go ahead, though, and continue to side with it because it doesn't fail. It's undefeated and perfect since 2015. So for me, that's all I need to know. These teams in these spots have a lot of success. And you got Washington coming off one of the biggest upsets of the season, going into Seattle and winning that game. Every week off the Seattle Seattle game is a very tough spot for the team that played the Seahawks because it is such a physical affair. And now you've got to come all the way back across the country after slugging it out with those dudes for 60 minutes in the poor weather, and you've got to turn around and get ready for a very physical Minnesota team that's rested. I'll take the Vikings in this spot.
Yeah, Vikings 4-game win streak here, covered their last 3 games, and Joe, more than anything coming off the bye here, they're going to get healthy. Stephon Diggs is finally going to be at full strength there. Kyle Rudolph had a chance to get healthy for this offense as well. Dave, you mentioned Case Keenum here, and we joke and we kind of laugh, but of these quote-unquote bad quarterbacks that are starting in the NFL right now, of these backup quarterbacks that are going, Case Keenum is by far the best of these guys. He can actually play a lick here in the NFL. Joe, I'm with you on this. This was one of my favorite plays of the week. Whenever I saw the lines open this week, I jumped on it as soon as I could. I wonder where this one's going to go, but I still like the Vikings, especially where you can get them right now.
Then why you got to troll me?
Keep in mind that Washington won that game against Seattle last week, but they really shouldn't have. Blair Walsh missed not 1, not 2, but 3 different field goals in that game. There was also that huge play by Washington at the end of the game. But, I mean, by all accords, Seattle should have been able to win that game if Blair Walsh didn't suck.
When are the Seahawks going to stop playing bump and run coverage in late game situations when they should be in cover 2? Like, they play this bump and run, and then they get beat down the sidelines, and then they wonder what went wrong. Like, for as great of a defense as they are, they put themselves in really awful positions late in games.
Well, especially with competent quarterbacks, right? I mean, like, listen, if you want to take that strategy against a bad quarterback and bait him into throwing a bad throw, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who can actually play here. So for me, yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, do that with Brock Osweiler. Don't do that with Kirk Cousins. Yeah. All right, next up, how about this one? The LA Chargers on the road at Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Jaguars laying 3.5 to 4, almost 4 across the board now at home. So that money looks like it's coming in on Jacksonville a little bit. Total in this one is 41, so not a super high scoring affair is what's being projected, but Matt, what do we need to know as far as news and notes on this game? We're going to get Leonard Fournette back this week, right? Because that was a pretty big surprise last week.
Yet another team coming off a bye here. Chargers going to be coming off a bye as well. Jaguars, like you mentioned, surprise inactive with Leonard Fournette this past week. I'm sure everyone was scrambling whenever that news came out. Apparently missed a team photo and a training session and different things like that. But they have said he is going to play this week, barring him doing anything other something terrible like missing a team photo yet again right there. Dante Fowler, though, did hurt his elbow, questionable for week 10, Joe. You know how important Dante Fowler is to this team. I don't think that necessarily swings the opinion all that much, but it's definitely something to note.
This is a big number for the Jaguars to lay. It's a big number, in my opinion, 4. Maybe that's because I'm not willing to completely buy into how well they played this season. But when you have very shaky quarterback play, and we're talking about covering numbers greater than a field goal, I'm going to have room for pause. The Chargers are coming off their bye week. They're coming across the country. They're a team that in their last 18 road games, they've only missed 5 spreads in that stretch. So they do tend to perform a little bit better on the road than they do at home. But they were really streaking outside of the New England defeat, which they had until that stupid safety late, at least in terms of a cover. They were playing really good football up until the bye. So is the bye going to derail them from that progress, or are they going to take the 2 weeks to get ready for this game and come out swinging once again? I think the value in Jaguar games is starting to lie in the over. I think people still view this team as this dead doormat of an offense that can't play any D, that has these sluggish football games that end 17-13, when in reality, if you look at their last 6 home games, 5 of them have gone over the total. They can score points, even though they love to play a little ground and pound, and that defense does a nice job of setting them up with the short field due to consistent array of 3 and outs and turnovers forced. So I would look at around 41 as your total for this game. I think Phillip Rivers and the Chargers will find a way to get to the end zone a few times, and I think the Jaguars are going to do their thing as well. I play over the total here, Matt.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if this total and this number has a lot to do with just how the Chargers offense is set up. The Chargers offense throws on 62.5% of their plays. And where is the strength of this Jaguars defense? I mean, granted, it's all over. This defense is an all-timer. But when you talk about against the pass, they are literally one of the all-time here. Jags D versus the pass, 156 yards per game, only averaging 120 pass yards allowed over the last 3 games here, Joe. So you have a team that skews very pass-heavy in the Chargers, going up against a defense that excels very, very big against the pass. So it makes me wonder how the Charger, what's the path of success here for the Chargers, because we look at Melvin Gordon, and yeah, he's having an all right season whenever you just look at the in totality here, but really and truly, he's been very inefficient. They brought in people here for the Jaguars to help shore up this run defense. I don't know, man. I know we've been burned by the Jaguars several different times, though we did play them last week and we won. Joe, I think I'm leaning towards the Jaguars here at 4. I mean, I would love this to get to 3 by the time this kicks off or something like that. A lot of people maybe see value in the Chargers coming off a bye, something like you're saying, maybe as a get-right spot for them. If it were to get to 3, I would unload for sure. Even at 4, it is a lean for me.
Yeah, so here's the deal is that, Jacksonville, Matt, like we talked about last week, the game plan for them with Blake Bortles struggling at quarterback should be that you just run Leonard Fournette until the wheels come off, as you said last week. They bench him last week, and they show that they're still able to get it done. Is that a sign of an evolution for this offense in Jacksonville, showing that it doesn't all just lie on the shoulders of Leonard Fournette?
Yeah, I mean, look, Chris Ivory is certainly not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but when you can go to a guy like Chris Ivory, trust me, if Chris Ivory was not on the roster there for them, they wouldn't be just surprised, like making Leonard Fournette inactive, right? Like Chris Ivory's a guy that's played in the league, had success in the league, and he stepped in last week and performed admirably for sure. Had, I think it was 60-something yards rushing, 30-something yards receiving, nearly 100 yards from scrimmage. So it's an offense that certainly revolves around the run game here. And I got to be honest, with Leonard Fournette getting that extra week off, and don't get me wrong, Dave, I think there was some disciplinary stuff going on here, but I think they weren't afraid to give Leonard Fournette an extra week. Remember, he had that tweak of the ankle a couple weeks back as well. I think that could have played a little bit into it as well. We get a healthy Leonard Fournette here. This Jacksonville team, play some defense. They're going to be tough to beat for anyone.
New Orleans is on the road at Buffalo, and as far as this game, you have a dome team that's going outdoors to play Buffalo. Buffalo plays really, really tough at home. New Orleans is the favorite on the road, though. They're laying 2.5 points, 3 in some spots. Bovada has them as 3-point favorites right now, headed to Buffalo. 48.5 is where they started at. It's come down to 46.5. Matt, what do we know about any notes on this game?
This Saints D has been playing great. That being said, though, Kenny Vaccaro dealing with a groin injury, a key part of that offense there, so certainly something to keep an eye on there. On the Bills side of things, Charles Clay still dealing with a knee issue. Zay Jones, questionable with a knee injury, wide receiver there. However, we will see the debut of Kelvin Benjamin, so even if Zay Jones can't go, you plug in Kelvin Benjamin, and by all intents and purposes, that's an upgrade for this Bills team.
All right, look, Joe, there's no secret about it. The Saints are streaking right now, 6 consecutive wins. Does that continue this week? And should they be the favorites on the road at Buffalo?
This is the game of the week if you like the Buffalo Bills. This is absolutely the game of the week right here. Everything is setting up for this to be the pros versus Joe's spectacular, right? So the Saints are streaking. They've got Drew Brees. They just hammered the Buccaneers. Everybody who doesn't pay attention to the nuance of this stuff is going to love the Saints this week. Meanwhile, you got a Buffalo team that, they looked good. And then on Thursday night, they went to New York and got crushed by the Jets. And nobody likes the Jets this season. So now Buffalo licks their wounds and they go home and everyone thinks they're a fraud. They got 10 days to get ready for the Saints. It's a non-conference game for the Saints. You could have some weather up there for the Bills, which plays right into their hands. I love the fact that Bovada's already got a 3 out there. I don't think this gets the 3 in the hook. I think the Sharps are going to be all over this at 3. And if they can see a 3.5, they're going to grab it. This is your pros versus Joe's divide of the week. I'm going to be all over the Bills here, Matt.
Wow. So let's talk about this here. This Saints defense is actually one of those things where the first couple of weeks of the season, we thought they were just going to be absolutely atrocious. Then you look and you kind of start taking a look at these numbers here. 12th in the league versus the pass, only giving up 210 yards a game. 19th versus the run. So kind of middle of the pack right there versus the run. 12th in takeaways, forcing some turnovers there. Then you look on the other side of the ball, Bills, first in the league in takeaways. So there's all kinds of takeaways going on there. 8th versus the run. So they're probably going to be able to stuff whatever they got going on with Kamara, which, by the way, Kamara has looked absolutely phenomenal now that they are starting to feature him.
Fantastic.
Now that they're starting to feature him there. And then Ingram, obviously. Here's the big stat, though, Joe. They are 26th versus the pass, giving up over 250 yards a game. If we're not dealing with weather concerns, like you said, which is always could be the case in Buffalo this time of year, if not, this Saints team's going to be able to move the ball through the air. But what I'm really looking at here is two really good, sneaky good defenses here. And I'm looking at under the total here. And especially if we start to get some weather concerns, like you mentioned, I will be all over the under in this game. I think the Saints are going to make it rough on Tyrod Taylor to get that ball, to move the ball. And I think this Bills defense, listen, 8th against the run, like I said, so not going to be able to just go crazy like they've been. Much more 50-50 this year with the Saints than it's been in years past, relying on those two workhorse backs. Might give up some yardage, might give up some points through the air, the Bills. I still think this under 46.5 is a pretty strong play.
Joe, I side with you on this one when it comes to not being totally sold on the idea that the Saints are going to be able to roll into Buffalo and continue their winning ways. So, I mean, you look at the schedule of who the Saints have beaten, and they beat the Panthers. Panthers have been spotty. The Dolphins, we all know their woes. The Lions have had their problems throughout the season as well. The Packers, sure, the Packers are dumpster fire without Aaron Rodgers. The Bears, everyone knows how terrible the Bears are. Then last week with the Bucs, the two good teams, in my opinion, that the Saints have faced this season in the Vikings and the Patriots, they've lost to both of those teams. Now, those were the first two games of the season, so people aren't really going to remember those with the 6 following that. I agree with you, Matt. That defense has certainly tightened up a whole lot, and more than we even expected it to as the season has gone on. But I think the Bills have themselves an advantage here. I don't like the Saints as home favorite or as road favorites at all in this game. I like the Bills in this spot, getting 2.5 to 3 points. Just a reminder, you can find all of the links right beneath us if you want to go to sbrodds.com and see these numbers changing in real time. And speaking of numbers changing, how about this one, Joe? We'll start here by talking about Chicago laying 3 at home to begin with. Now it's up to 5. Joe, before we get your thoughts on it, Matt, is there anything that we need to know in this game where the total is low? It's 38, but again, money looks like it's coming in on Chicago at home.
Yeah, total's low, maybe because of this reason. Brett Hundley threw 38 times, did not throw a touchdown pass, was sacked 3 different times, averaged 5.7 yards per attempt at home, coming off of a bye, I might add. Green Bay is a team 2 of 9 on third down, just looked absolutely atrocious in that game. Bears, no real injuries to speak of per se, and they actually have covered all 4 games at home so far this year.
But, Joe, 5 points at home for a team in the Chicago Bears that have Mitch Trubisky under center, who in their last win, he threw it a total of 7 times, only completed 4 of those passes.
Yeah, that's a major alarm to me in this game. When you've got spreads that are north of a field goal, you might have situations late in games where you need to find a way to get 2 scores out of your quarterback, right? Maybe you're trailing by 3, you drive down the field, you score a field goal, but you need a touchdown to win it, or what have you, right? Is Trubisky a guy that you have any confidence in that can lead consistent drives up and down the field? Maybe in the future, but right now he hasn't shown it. So to cover 5, you need a huge defensive effort and a terrible game out of the Packers. This is the first time since 2008 that Chicago has been favored over Green Bay. Bears fans are feeling it. It feels like they can get one back at the Packers because Aaron Rodgers isn't set to go. There's not a whole lot to like here, to be honest with you. It's a total of 38. I'd lean towards the under in this game. I could see this as 17-10. I could see this as 10-6. The Chicago defense is going to severely limit Green Bay. The question is whether or not that Chicago defense scores multiple times like we saw against Carolina. That final score is the one I'm looking for here, similar to that Bears-Carolina game.
Yeah, I'm with you. If there's a lean here, it's to the under. I see you can still find a couple of 38.5s out there, so you at least get an extra half point there. But this game just has stinker written all over it and really has confusion written all over it because you have to wonder what Green Bay has to be thinking, has to be feeling. I mean, listen, yeah, Hundley is bad, but guys, he still has talent around him. Like for them to be so inept on offense, you have to think they could have a better showing coming in here to Chicago. But at the same time, Chicago has been playing better at home, and it would not surprise me to see this team win by a touchdown. Listen, Joe, we have more games on the slate this week than the last 2 weeks. I think this is one that you probably just find a better spot, right?
I'm with you on that. You don't need to be a total degen and bet every game. Maybe we could find you a prop in this game. Follow us on Twitter. Maybe we'll throw you a prop for this game.
I agree.
Yeah, when it comes to this point in the season, right, there's certain teams that we trust and there's certain teams that we certainly do not trust. And with both of these teams, especially with Brett Hundley going for the Green Bay Packers, there's just no real expectation of them being able to do anything almost guaranteed going into a game like this. And then, like we were saying earlier, Mitch Trubisky has a lot of question marks behind his last name as we sit right now. Now, next up, we've got Cincinnati traveling to Tennessee. In this one, Tennessee is laying 3.5 at open. Now it's up to 4.5, even 5 in some places over on UWager. Tennessee laying 5 at home. Total in this one, 40.5. What do we know, Matt?
Another laugher, right? Whenever you look at this, the Bengals, all kinds of guys questionable. Another infirmary of a team here. Jeremy Hill was a surprise inactive. He rolled his ankle in pregame, so he's questionable for this game. They just got destroyed by the Jags. Dave, 148 total yards of offense. AJ Green got ejected for going crazy on Jalen Ramsey. Apparently Jalen Ramsey said something to him about what he would do to AJ Green's wife. That seems to be the rumor that's going on. AJ Green loses his mind and does the thing where you've completely lost your mind. Not one, but 2 full-on closed fist punches to the helmet of the other guy. You're a wide receiver. You need your hands. Maybe let's not be throwing closed fist punches into other guys' helmets. Let's try not to do that. Titans won at home last week against the Ravens. Didn't cover the 3.5 there. DeMarco Murray, Delaney Walker, both questionable for this week.
All right, Joe, what do you see in this one? Because like Matt's saying, you have 2 teams that are seemingly in total disarray. Cincinnati, probably more of the dumpster fire, but Tennessee has been that one team that almost lost to the Browns so far this season.
First of all, doesn't it feel like AJ Green maybe has a little Marvin Harrison in him? Really quiet, goes about his business. You think he's a good guy, and then you see something like that, and you hear about Marvin Harrison in Philadelphia with the guns and the car washes and all the trouble he was getting into. And AJ Green goes out there and throws some nice punches and some nice chokeholds. You think that's not the first time that dude's been in a fight. Like he knew what he was doing.
The problem there is he had the back and he didn't keep it. He didn't throw the hooks in. He had the back.
Just sink that choke in, man. If you got the helmet, it's extra. You can grab onto it. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just sunk the hooks in. That could have been a finish. I mean, he could have finished him right there.
That's GSP style choke. Good night, buddy.
I mean, listen, there were fights all over the NFL. I'm blaming UFC 217 on that. I bet everybody had every NFL team had a party. Everybody was watching UFC, and next thing you know, everyone's fired up to go beat somebody up the next day on the field. I'm blaming UFC 217 for all this.
You know, back to this game, Tennessee has failed to cover the number just once in their last 8 home games. That was that Raider game to open up the season. But this is a significant amount of points for a team that over their last 4 games, they've scored 14, 10, 36, and 12. And 12 against the Cleveland Browns. Now, I know that was on the road, but it's not exactly a high-octane offense. So, again, I find myself looking to the under in this game, but I get questionable about that because I look at what Cincinnati did in Jacksonville last week. They made the Jag offense look fantastic. They let the Jags hang all types of points on them in a game where you have to start wondering, have the Bengals quit on the season? Have they quit on Marvin Lewis? Has he lost the locker room here? A.J. McCarron's filing a grievance against him. Andy Dalton, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up with the Washington Redskins next year to replace Kirk Cousins once he leaves. I don't know how much time he has left in Cincy. It feels like a team when you see a guy, a pillar of the community like AJ Green, getting into a fight on the field, it feels like a locker room that's been lost. So for this one, it's an all-around pass. I just can't get behind the Titans because they've shown too many inconsistencies in a season in which they were supposed to be a legitimate playoff contender.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you just hit the nail on the head right there. Marcus Mariota, boy, we thought that this was going to be the breakout year, right? And this has just not been the case with Marcus Mariota at all. And really, you look at this Titans team and you look around and there's decent talent all over the place. They have been, they had to battle some different injuries. Obviously, Mariota missed some time. You got Delaney Walker missing some time. You've got DeMarco Murray, who never seems fully healthy, but you do have Derrick Henry behind him who can tote the rock. So I don't know, man. It seems to me like this Tennessee team should be better than they are. And this, I hate to repeat exactly what I said in this last game, but it's 2 unknowns going into this game. And I hate betting 2 games that have 2 different teams of unknowns for me. I mean, there's a lot of injury news that we need to really have to look at, probably coming down to Sunday morning, Joe, in this one as to where it's going to shape an opinion for me. So I think this is hey guys, hate to say this, but let's look again on Sunday morning when the official injury reports come out and see where these 2 teams sit.
Okay, now that we've talked about all the stinker games, let's move on to the good ones. Next up is the Jets at Tampa Bay.
Should we just turn this into a college football show? Like, I mean should we
almost, right?
Let's start talking NBA or something.
This is kind of a tough slate this week. So
put this in perspective. Put this in perspective, boys. I got to throw this out there. If before the season started, I told you that in week 10, the New York Jets, who many people thought would go 0-16, would go to Tampa Bay and lay points against a Buccaneer team that people thought could be a dark horse for the NFC Championship game, I would have said, hand me that crack rock. I've never smoked it, but I'd love to give it a try because that sounds fantastic. This is crazy. The Jets are laying points on the road.
Yeah, sure enough. So it opens up with Tampa Bay laying 1.5 now. All of a sudden, the Jets are laying 1 to 2.5, depending on where you're looking. And SBRodds.com to see these numbers changing in real time. 41 to 41.5 is the total in this one. But look, Jameis Winston is out. Mike Evans suspended. And the Jets have been scrappy in almost every single game this season. So it seems really warranted that the Jets are getting the points, even though they're on the road in Tampa Bay, who has been nothing short of a mess this season. Matt, outside of the two guys that I just mentioned, anyone else of note that we should be aware of?
I mean, the Jets here, you take a look at this. I mean, like you said, coming off of a beat down there of the Bills. And I think the notable thing to bring out of that game is they held LaShawn McCoy to 25 yards rushing in that game, which was a season low for him by a long shot. So played just out of their minds there. Like you mentioned, Jameis Winston, they're going to sit him down for a few weeks. It's going to be Fitzmagic, baby. Ryan Fitzmagic, and I got to be honest. Don't know if that's too big of a downgrade here. Mike Evans going to be suspended. He is appealing, but it was only a 1-game suspension. They're not going to not suspend him for the way that went, so he's going to end up serving that. Brent Grimes and William Golson also likely out for the Bucs in this game.
What do you do about this revenge factor here? Because I think Dave was about to hit on it with the fact that it's Fitzmagic going up against his former team in the Jets, who he had a lot of beef with them over that contract dispute leading in the last season. And then the Jets team that hates that dude. Like, they hate that dude. I could see them getting up for this game just to pummel that dude into oblivion for holding out for that cash and then delivering like the turd that he is on so many different occasions. This is going to be an emotional game for the Jets. Believe it or not, Todd Bowles, this is the difference between these two teams, and this is why I would seriously consider the Jets in this spot. Todd Bowles has his team playing football. The Jets show up. They're not going to win every week, but they show up. They're prepared. They play hard. They try to close. Granted, in the fourth quarter, they have a lot of mess-ups, but they're not a good team. But they show up and they try. And then meanwhile, you got this Bucs team that is all the talent in the world. They don't give a damn. They're out there fighting people, acting like fools on a weekly basis. I hate to say this, but I got to lean towards the Jets here. They're at least organized.
Joe, it gives me the chills down my spine to say that I love the Jets in this spot too. But all they have to do is win by a field goal and you score. I like that spot. What do you say, Matt?
I'm actually thinking this is the prime opportunity on the Tampa Bay side to make this a leg of a 6-point teaser. You get it past the key number of 7 there. You get 8.5 in this one. It would not surprise me to see the Jets win. But like I said, I don't know if Ryan Fitzpatrick is really that big of a downgrade at this juncture from Jameis Winston, especially the Jameis Winston we've seen over the past few weeks. I mean, he was obviously injured. And if you watch that pregame speech that he had going on there and everything, the guy is a little loco. Something's like not right up there with him. Then he comes off the sideline, poking people in the helmet when he's already out of the game, starting fights, gets his starting wide receiver suspended because his starting wide receiver comes over and tries to defend his honor like we see so many different times here. Dave, for me, I think this is a perfect opportunity. I don't like taking Tampa Bay if it's only 2.5. If it got to 3, I think it's certainly something I would play, but I think this is a great opportunity to get it past that number of 7 in the first leg of a 6-point teaser.
All right. So all kidding aside, now the garbage games are done. Now it's on to the good ones. Cleveland and Detroit is next up to round out the early games. Detroit. So obviously short week here. They're laying, this is insane, 13.5, 12.5, 11.5, depending on where you look, SBRodds.com. I mean, it's Cleveland coming to town. And yes, Cleveland does stink, but I mean, Detroit and Cleveland's coming off the bye to be laying 2 touchdowns almost. Matt, what do we know as far as injuries goes? Is there anything that we need to be really aware of?
And I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, so the Browns are coming off a bye with really no injuries to speak of whatsoever, laying all those points. Maybe it's because they've covered exactly 1 time in the last 8 games. Maybe that has something to do with it. On the Lions side of things,
just a little casual sabotage in the front office. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal there. Lions go into Lambeau, win against the Packers here. They're really on their side. Rookie wide receiver Kenny Golladay missed yet again, probably going to miss again with a hamstring injury, but that's really not that big of a deal. They've got Marvin Jones. They've got Golden Tate. They've got other receivers there. So not a big downgrade for the Lions at all.
All right, Joe, what do you say on this one? I mean, 13, it opens at 9.5, and apparently the money is pouring in on Detroit to get it up to 13.5. So should they be laying that many points on a short week with Cleveland coming off the bye, or do we always just say, you know what, Doesn't matter who Cleveland's playing. They're going to lose, and they're going to lose big.
Here's what I see. And you can judge me all you want for this statement, but in San Francisco, they have some tremendous brunch locations here, some tremendous brunches with all you can eat, all you can drink champagne, right? Bottomless champagne. I am going to go to brunch for this early wave of games because it is really not worth watching any of this garbage.
Yeah.
This game is just, we'll discuss it. We'll try to find an angle here, but I would say this: Detroit team total. So we're looking at a 13-point spread in a game with a total of about 43 or so. What are we looking at for a team total? 30 points here, somewhere in that neighborhood, 27. What would we be thinking? The implied total, whatever it is, I'll go over on Detroit. I think they cruise into this game off the win on Monday night. Maybe they're a little sluggish early, but if you watch the way the Browns fold late they do on a regular basis, you're probably going to get 10 to 14 points from Detroit in the final quarter. I'd play over the team total here. I think they'll handle their business, and they're going to have fun in the process.
Yeah, 28.25 is your implied total there for Detroit. I think that's probably a pretty good bet here. Joe, you said it perfectly, dude. I mean, look, guys, we're trying to put lipstick on a pig here, but whenever you look at these early slate of games, I mean, wow, this is
brunch. Let's all go to brunch.
This is just stinker central whenever you look at this stuff. Listen, I talked about the 6-point teaser, opening it up maybe on that Tampa Bay side. I think you could probably close it out there with Detroit. Detroit's definitely going to win by a touchdown. I mean, like, they're definitely going to win by a touchdown there. So you could close it out with Detroit right there with 7. Easily could win this game by 10, 17, something like that. So if you're going to do that, maybe that's the way to go. But we're into some good games here whenever we look into the afternoon, Dave.
Well, not yet. So Houston is on the road in Los Angeles, and this one is another one of these games where there's a huge home favorite in the Los Angeles Rams. Houston, of course, without Deshaun Watson, that's got to be the biggest news. But, Matt, outside of the defensive injuries that happened earlier this season, is there anyone else on Houston that has broken a spine this week?
I mean, if we look at this, I mean, like you mentioned, Texans coming off a loss to the Colts as 6-point favorites there. Tom Savage, 19 of 44, a quarterback rating of 15.3, guys. 15.3. I did not even know you could have a QBR of 15.3 in the NFL. And actually,
he said it was the most frustrating game of his career. Not the game where he threw like 14 picks and that got benched for Deshaun Watson. The one last week was the most frustrating of his career.
Yeah. So QBR.
It was against Indianapolis.
Yeah.
It was against Indianapolis. That's a college team. Yeah. Not even a good college team. They made
Indianapolis look good. They really did.
Yeah. And then you got on the other side, the Rams. Truck the Giants, come out completely healthy. Goff goes for 311 yards. They put up 51 points. This is a bad spot for the Texans.
Give me, give me another team total here. I'll play the over on the Rams in this game. I think they're going to keep the offense cooking. They've covered the over in 8 of their last 10 games. The Rams have. They're playing good football. And if you look at what Sean McVay, the head coach, is doing, he's bringing some of those college principles that you see from these spread them out air raid offenses, and he's incorporating that into what he does with the Rams. Granted, it's not the foundation of his offensive system, but he's smart. He realizes that's Jared Goff's strength. So let's build the system around the quarterback rather than force the quarterback into a bad system. That's the biggest problem in Tennessee right now. Malarkey and the Titans are trying to force Marcus Mariota into a system he does not fit. Why did you draft him? You saw what he did at Oregon, create an offense that looks something similar to that. Don't necessarily go full Chip Kelly, but come close to it. In this scenario, Houston looks like a team that's quit on the season. I mean, honestly, that's as bad as it gets right there. Watson goes down, and then you let Indy come in and show no pride whatsoever. You would think you have a good week of practice here and you bounce back. But I'll tell you what, this Rams team, it's hard to say when you've got a line of 11 and a half, 12 out there. They might be a bit undervalued based on how they played this year. I don't think people have bought into how good they are. Give me the over on their team total as well. I think they're going to hang 30 easy in this game.
So, all right, so total in this one, like you just mentioned, depending on where you look, 46 and a half. And again, the Rams 11 to 11 and a half, even 12 and a half point favorites at home in this one, depending on where you look. What do you got, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Joe, the Rams have scored fewer than 20 points one time this season. So, I mean, like, you're looking at a team that consistently scores over 20 points. That one time was against Seattle. So nothing to sneeze at there. Seattle and Seattle's defense for the Rams to go under 20 points. I don't think people appreciate what's going on there in Los Angeles. It is applied team total of about 29 in this one. That being said, I like the over in this game. I think that they easily put up 35 plus points in this game, and I think they give a little bit to the Texans here. I think you can look at the over 46 in this game. I don't know necessarily if I will parlay this with the 11, but I'm telling you, I'm feeling pretty good about them covering the 11 as well. You can still get 11s out there at Bookmaker and what is that? Just Bet as well. So have both of the, and Bet DSI also has 11s. Dave, I think this Rams team is for real, and I definitely believe in this Texans team basically packing it in this season.
All right, so enough of these blowout games. Let's talk about a game that's close. Good one here. The Giants at the 49ers. God.
You know what, Dave? It's been great how you've been running this little bit, but it's not even funny anymore. This is just sad.
Just sad.
This really did get sad.
So here we are in week number 10, and these two teams share a single win. Christ. So the Giants started out, well, now they're laying 1 point on the road or pick them in some spots. San Francisco was 1 point favorites at home, and the total in this one is 42, 41.5, and in some spots even 42.5. SBRodds.com. This is just another one of these games where both of these teams are so bad, but you've got to, at least on the surface, I look and go, yeah, at least San Fran's been competitive and chippy in a lot of their games this season. I've got to think that they're at home should be slight favorites. Maybe Matt, what do we know?
The Giants, who were by many picked to win their division, I might add,
are now to go to the Super Bowl.
Are now basically a pick 'em with the winless 49ers. The Giants, the whole damn defense is hurt. Jonathan Casillas is hurt. Olivier Vernon's hurt. BJ Goodson's hurt. Another 4 defensive guys are hurt, and that's not even me being facetious. Like another 4 defensive guys are all questionable. Whole defense for the Giants is out. 49ers, George Kittle went down. He's already ruled out. Trent Taylor's already ruled out, wide receiver there for the 49ers. Joe, this is just another game, complete infirmary on both sides. Horrible, horrible, horrible teams. I don't even know where. I was cracking up, Dave, as you were like doing the lead into this. I was cracking up
listening
to this.
Joe, do you play this game or not?
Yeah, I'm going to play it. There's a couple angles here I would look at. I mean, first off, if the Giants don't win this game, how do you let Ben McAdoo fly back with the team? Right at that point, you have to leave him in San Francisco.
You put him on a Greyhound. You put him on a Greyhound.
Just float him out towards Alcatraz. Just push him on a Greyhound.
Yeah. Ben McAdoo. You know what? Don't do that to Alcatraz. That's a cool spot. Don't make Ben McAdoo go there. Don't ruin it for everybody. You can't lose this game if you're Ben McAdoo. You can't, or the job's over. So but that's not going to get me to side with the Giants. What I'm going to do is play the under of 42. I'm seeing it right now at Bookmaker. I'll play under 42 here. This looks like what we saw last week against the Arizona Cardinals. Think about it. You had a bad offense coming in with Drew Stanton. Final score 20-10. The Giants, as bad as they've been on both sides of the ball, defensively, they're not going to get run on all over the field by this 49er offense. These dudes have nothing. Pierre Garçon's on IR. The offensive line's banged up. CJ Beathard is getting his ass kicked back there. In 3.5 games, he's been sacked like 16 times and taken 47 hits. Dude's taking a pounding. They've got no weapons. So I don't see the Niners scoring. The Giants, I mean, what are they going to do with Eli Manning in that offense? They stink too. So they're probably going to put up 20. San Francisco gets their 10. It's the game like last week we saw Arizona, San Francisco play under 42 2 points. I don't even know if it gets to 30 points.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my only advice here is if you want to play this game, just play the money line, because whoever wins is going to win by a lot. We see these two garbage teams get together all the time. And like you said, it's a comedy of errors. Like one of the defenses is going to score a touchdown in this game. For sure. There's going to be a strip sack for a touchdown. There's going to be a pick six. There's going to be a freak like special teams touchdown or something like that. Like, it's not going to be close, I don't think, one way or the other. So if you're going to play this game, play the money line and just go ahead and go with that, because I can't see any scenario of this game staying close.
All right, let's move on to a game that's actually quite a bit of fun. How about this one? Dallas on the road at Atlanta. And this actually surprised me when I first saw this number come out. I figured that Dallas would be favored in this one. I get all the stuff that's going on with Zeke, and I think that Zeke's worth probably 1.5, maybe 2 if you're being really optimistic, to a spread. But the fact that Dallas is a dog on the road to Atlanta, even though it's in Atlanta, Atlanta has been full of problems this season. Offensively, they just haven't been able to hit their stride, whereas Dallas seems to be trending in the right direction. Bigger total in this one, certainly. 53.5 at open. It's down to 50.5 across the board. Atlanta remains as a favorite at home, laying a field goal in just one spot, 2.5 points. Matt, what do we know as far outside of the Ezekiel Elliott stuff, which we're not going to know until way later in the week? What do we know?
But it looks like he'll be good to go again. We will say that.
It looks like, but who knows?
Yeah, it looks like he'll be good to go again. The reason this line, the reason this line is where it's at is because Dallas lost both of their starting wide receivers in this game. Des Bryant went out. Terrence Williams went out. Both have injuries. Both are very, very questionable this week. And this line leads me to believe that they think that either one or maybe even both of these guys are not going to play this week. That's the only way that this line really makes any sense to me whatsoever. On the Falcons side, another pathetic effort on their end, lost to the Panthers. Devonta Freeman, Julio Jones, both kind of banged up in the game, though doesn't look like they're scheduled to miss this one. Dave, last 5 games here for this Falcons team. The Falcons, 1-4, point totals of 17, 17, 7, 25, but the 25 was against the Jets, and then 17. You got all that talent, you got all this firepower, and you hadn't put up more than 17 points in the last 5 games except against the Jets whenever you put up 25.
Oh, it's brutal. So, Joe, over to you on this one. Should you side with Atlanta? Should you side with Dallas? Are you playing the total in this one? How are you approaching it?
All right. So the Falcons, let's call them a 3-point favorite in this game, right? So that would mean that if they get their 3 points for home field advantage, these two teams are power ranked even. That's inaccurate. Now, even with Terrence Williams and Des Bryant hurt, and those are 2 big blows, these teams are not even by any stretch of the imagination. So there's value in the Cowboys here. The Atlanta Falcons have been overvalued from the start, and they continue to be overvalued because people saw them in the Super Bowl last year. This is a vastly different team. The loss of Kyle Shanahan and the transition to offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian, which, by the way, did you see the report Gary Kubiak is now floating his name out there through sources that he wants to come back as an OC? That's a flag for one of 2 teams, Atlanta and Sarkisian's job or the Raiders and Todd Downing's job. But that's a story for another day. So go through this Atlanta schedule. They beat the Bears in week 1. The Bears had a chance to win that late. They beat Green Bay in that blowout at home on Sunday night when they opened the Dome. Good win.
That was like their one big win, right?
Yeah.
Like that was their legitimate win on the season.
That was it. Then you're at Detroit, and Detroit should have beat them late. You lose to Buffalo. You lose to Miami. You lose to New England. You beat the Jets, who had a chance to beat you late. And then you lose to Carolina after grabbing a 10-0 lead. Like, they're not a very good team. They're actually real close to being, 1-7 right here? I'll take the Cowboys. I don't care about the wide receiver injuries. Cowboys are buttoned up. Cowboys will find a way to limit what Atlanta is doing because Atlanta has no firepower. They used to be all offense. Now they got nothing. 10 points at Carolina? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, if you look at this, I guess what you have to do here, and we are obviously gamblers because we're sitting here talking about gambling on sports games. Dave, Joe, do you roll the dice and play the under here thinking that either or Terrence Williams or Des Bryant, or maybe even both of these guys don't play, Dallas becomes even more run heavy than they already are, and this is just no way that this game gets over the 50.5 total here, that there's no way that 51 points get scored here. For me, it's a risk I'm willing to take. You can see a bunch of people already went that way. It opened at 53, already down to 50.5 here in this one. For me, Joe, I think this is one of those risks I'm willing to take because, again, this line stinks to high heaven that they don't think that one of these key players is going to play. Dallas going to be super run heavy, more run heavy than they already are. I think the under is the play here.
I agree. I like that analysis. I think that's pretty sharp right there.
Yeah, Dallas and under certainly is the way I'm leaning in that one. All right, next up, we move on to Sunday Night Football. And this one surprised me when I first saw it come out as well, Matt. We've got New England traveling to Denver. Denver, of course, is just a mess right now. Trevor Siemian gets benched. They bring in Brock Osweiler, who looks just as bad, if not worse, than Trevor Siemian. Paxton Lynch is sitting on the sideline. The Denver defense just gets worn down as each of these games go on because the offense can't do anything. And here you have New England coming to town, who's certainly moving in the right direction. And they're 7.5, 8.5, depending on where you look. That's not nearly as big of a favorite as some of these other teams that we've seen. And it's New England against Denver. Am I missing something here? Why aren't the Patriots double-digit favorites when a lot of these other teams are?
I mean, not really. So Patriots coming off a bye. Chris Hogan is still doubtful, though. Doesn't look like he's going to play. But Stephon Gilmore, cornerback, looks like he's going to clear concussion protocol, and he'll be back for the Patriots here. Broncos, as we mentioned, just got wrecked by Philly. Absolutely embarrassed. Osweiler, we brought up the Savage stats earlier. Here's Osweiler, 19 of 38, 5.5 yards per attempt. If you were wondering, that's horrible. 2 picks for him and a QBR of 21.2. There's nothing. Listen, this Denver defense is getting overvalued in this situation. And we talked about this, and we're going to continue to talk about this. As long as the offense is as pathetic as they are, Dave, they're not going to be able to move the ball. They're not going to be able to get the defense off of the field. And that is why this Patriots team, to me, seems like a great value here.
Exhibit A in the Colin Kaepernick collusion case is Brock Osweiler employed in the NFL. That's Exhibit A in your collusion case, because that dude is just terrible. He's absolutely terrible. Tom Savage would be Exhibit B. Patriots 10-2 in their last 12 on the road in terms of against the spread. They're also 20-7 against the number over their last 27 overall. They've been handling business about as well as you could possibly imagine. They're off the bye here. Generally in this spot, my analysis would be, well, the home team, it's a primetime game. They're going to get up for it. They were just embarrassed. Use that analysis for, say, the Jets last week on Thursday night worked out. Dolphins against the Raiders, that was a push. But we saw these guys in prime time on Sunday night just a few weeks ago, and the Giants rolled in and kicked their ass. I think the Broncos have quit on the season. I really do. I think they look at the quarterback position. They're 2 years removed from Peyton Manning. They realize this is a mess and they're not going anywhere, and the defense is laying down. I think you can lay the points here. I think you can close a lot of 6-point teasers with Brady as well. You tease it through 7, you tease it through 3. You're sitting there 1.5. You're going to be in a fine position.
Absolutely. One of my favorite plays of the week for sure.
All right, on to our Monday night football game. We have got Miami at Carolina. And look, last week, Jay Cutler ended up being one of the best fantasy quarterbacks on the week. But let's not get things crossed. Jay Cutler is not all of a sudden good. He was playing against Oakland's defense, which is not good. They're going up against Carolina this week. They're traveling. They're on the road. And Carolina, make no mistake, people have identified this. They start out laying 7.5 at home. Now they're laying 9, even 10 in some places. 39.5 is the total here, Matt. What do we know?
Yeah, the big news and notes for this is that the Panthers finally started to feature Christian McCaffrey in that offense. Highest snap percentage of the year, most run opportunities of the year, looking to scheme plays specifically for him. And what did he do? He went out there and proved that he can play in the NFL, and this is what they probably should have been doing all along. So the big takeaway here is the Panthers, I think this offense figured a little bit out here, and I don't think that it really skipped a beat all that much by shipping Kelvin Benjamin out of town. Funchess, basically the same player there. Kelvin with Cam Newton running the ball yet again. You saw an amazing dive over the goal line to score a touchdown there. I think this Panthers offense is starting to figure it out a little bit.
4 games this year, the Panthers have scored 17 or fewer points. 5 games, 20 or fewer points. In fact, their last 3 games out, 3 points, 17 points, 20 points. It's tough to try to bet a game and lay this many with an offense that hasn't played with a high level of consistency. For example, if I'm going to lay 10, I want Brady, I want Rodgers, I want Breeze, I want what's happening with the LA Rams. I don't want Cam Newton throwing 14 of 22 for 158 yards, but Miami's been terrible, and we saw them in prime time just 2 weeks ago on the road at Baltimore get absolutely shellacked. This is a bad football team. And Dave, you were right. Jay Cutler looked good last week because he was playing against Oakland. This week he's got Luke Kuechly and the Panthers on the road. That's a messy game with a total of 39.5 points. There's not a lot to like here. I might side towards the under. I think the Carolina defense might shut Miami to fewer than 10 points. They go out and get their 21-24 when all's said and done. 31 or 34 total points on the board. Carolina wins. Carolina, I'm not going to say covers, but I'll play the under in this game most likely. You can wait till Monday, though. It's a Monday night game. It'll probably go up a point or so.
Very right, good. Yeah, Joe, Joe brings up a good point right there that I guess we can kind of touch on, that with these standalone games, if you like to play the under, typically you just want to wait until the last minute to play that, because the public always comes in and they hate betting unders, hate it. In these standalone games, you always see them tick up a half point to a point, maybe even a 1.5 in some of these cases. So Joe, very good analysis there. Yeah. Hold out till the very last minute if you want to play the under in this one.
All right, and then for Thursday night, we've got ourselves Seattle on the road at Arizona. Seattle is laying 5.5, even 6 in some places now. Total in this one, 42.5 at open. Now it's down to 41.5. Matt, you had a great point last week. Adrian Peterson came out and looked awesome, right? But Adrian Peterson and the Arizona Cardinals were coming off the bye. You had a fantastic point about how AP, he's a little bit older now. He's able to rest up. That's not the case now. He's going to be going up against Seattle. Sure, this game is at home for Arizona, but This is an angry Seattle team that's coming off an embarrassing loss to the Redskins, traveling down to Arizona. It's still an important game for Seattle to win. Whereas Arizona, how much do they really have to play for at this point? And they didn't have that extra week of rest. How do you see this one? Is there any big injuries we need to be aware of?
I mean, the big thing to talk about here is what you just mentioned. Adrian Peterson, not a spring chicken here, 39 touches in that game, 37 carries and 2 receptions in that game. Now he has to come back and face a Seattle team that just is coming off, got to be angry, right? I mean, just got to be absolutely fired up for this one. I think this is a huge, huge letdown spot. Drew Stanton was only 50% completion percentage in that game. Certainly didn't show anything that would make you have confidence in a guy like Drew Stanton whatsoever. So that's the big takeaway, Dave. I think these older guys will start to show their age a little bit more as this season wears on. And certainly after the workload that Adrian Peterson just had, he is not going to look the same this week.
This Seattle offense sucks. These guys suck. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I know they had that shootout with Houston, but they are unwatchable on offense. 4 road games this year, they're averaging 19 points per game offensively. Defensively, they're giving up about 16.7 points per game on the road. That points to the under. Arizona, 6-1 to the under in their last 7 games overall, 12-3 to the under in their last 15 home games. Dating back to obviously last season and beyond. So I look at this game right now. I don't know if I want to lay 5 on the road in a primetime spot with a really lousy Seattle offense. I think crowd noise plays a factor here. But at the same time, I'm not getting behind Drew Stanton with the Seattle team coming off a loss. I'm going to look to under the total. I'm going to look to playing under the total here.
If you 6-point tease this game and you get Seattle at a pick and then like under 47.5, 48, something like that, seems like a pretty good, like 2 legs of a 6-point teaser there for me. I mean, look, Arizona's going to try to run the ball. They're not going to have success. They're going to try to not make Drew Stanton have to carry this team. It's real hard to pass on Seattle on the wings. And so they're going to just go dump over the middle, dump over the middle, dump over the middle. What does that do? That runs clock. It runs clock. And like you said, you look at this Seattle offense, they're not that great either. I think this is an underplay all day and probably a 6-point teaser, like I mentioned, with a pick on Seattle side.
All right, guys, to close us out, let's take a look at the college slate here. There's a lot of fun games on this college slate this weekend. We'll talk about Georgia and Auburn here in just a second, but certainly the marquee game that has a lot of people chattering is Notre Dame. They're traveling to Miami, and Miami at home, they're actually getting 3 points. So Notre Dame is laying 4 at open. Now it's down to 3 in this one. We find out whether or not this Miami defense can really stand up against a very powerful Notre Dame offense. Matt, is there anything we didn't know about this game when it comes to injuries or notes? Because there's been some chatter about whether or not everyone's healthy on the Notre Dame side of the ball specifically.
Yeah, I mean, nothing that is concrete as of right now. So there's nothing we can really go on to make a play one way or the other that's going to affect how we handicap this game. All I can say is let me apologize to the U faithful out there because I have been against this team about as much as you could possibly do, and they keep burning me. So Joe and I were standing next to each other as they burned us last week. Will they burn us again this week, Joe?
I'm taking Notre Dame. I'll lay the points here. I'll tell you what.
I love it. love it.
Miami deserves a lot of credit because they had been living by the skin of their teeth for weeks. Late 1-score games, they were winning them week after week after week. Everyone was calling them a fraud, and then they went out there in a nationally televised game and they smashed Virginia Tech. And that says a lot about how pathetic the quarterback play is at Virginia Tech. I mean, those guys couldn't even move the ball. Here comes Notre Dame laying 3 on the road. Notre Dame has a massive offensive line and can run the football very, very well. There are a couple tricky spots for Notre Dame on the schedule this year where I thought they would fall victim, NC State being one of those games, and they hammered NC State. I think this is a huge step up in class for the U. I'll lay the points with Notre Dame, but it's nice that Catholics versus convicts is finally back in our lives.
Yeah, listen, I stood next to you last week and I said the exact same thing. I said, hey, if they burn me this week, I will go right back betting against them next week. I believe 100% that I'm going to do that yet again. I still am not a believer. I don't know why. There's something about this team that rubs me the wrong way. I think this is finally the week they get exposed, get kicked out of the playoff picture here. Notre Dame for sure.
All right, 57.5 the total there. And I'm moving on to this game with, and this shocked me when I first saw this line come out as well. Georgia, who is definitely one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country, they're traveling to Auburn. And Auburn was laying 2 at home as favorites when this opened. That's since shifted, and Georgia is now getting 2.5 points, depending on where you look. Again, SBRodds.com. Total in this one is 51.5. Matt, you are an SEC guy. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I mean, that's just that seems a little bit absurd, doesn't it? Whenever you kind of like to when you take a look at this, I mean, Georgia has been beating the brakes off of basically everybody that they play. There's something weird though in the SEC about these 3:30 games, and teams get real fired up knowing that they're the CBS game of the week and they're playing at home. For me, now that the number has crept to 3 and I need more than 3 on the Georgia side, for me, Joe, this seems like a weird stay away. And I know it seems like it should be an obvious play on the Georgia side, but for me, it's a weird stay away. These SEC teams get up at home, tons and tons of home field advantage. They love these 3:30 Eastern kicks. I'm going to watch this one. I think it will be a very fun game to watch, and I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm not going to be playing it.
I don't love it, but I side with Georgia. They had their wake-up call last week. They're named the number 1 team in the country by the playoff committee the first time the selection show comes out. What happens? They play an underrated South Carolina team, and they're laying at close about 23.5. I like South Carolina in that spot for exactly that reason, and South Carolina ends up covering. Now, granted, Georgia controlled most of that game, but that's a wake-up call. They're going to go in, and Kirby Smart's going to let them know flat out, this is how it's going to be the rest of the way out. You can't get caught looking ahead to Alabama. So I think they refocus their energy. They head here to Auburn. It's a smaller spread. They handle their business, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It'll be close, but I like them to cover that number by the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't think there's a more complete college football team than Georgia right now that's playing. You're exactly right. South Carolina doesn't get the credit they deserve. They're a lot more chippy than people give them credit for. And South Carolina always plays Georgia really tough. That's just one of those games. If South Carolina is going to be between the hedges, they're at least going to put up a fight in that game. And so everyone's looking at Georgia with this huge number going, they're the best team in college football. And then they don't perform. They don't meet expectations. People are disappointed. But to all of a sudden be a dog to Auburn, even though that's reversed now, I think that's obscene, Matt. I'll watch this game with you gladly, and I'll be all in on Georgia on this one. I think that this is a great spot for Georgia. All right, let's talk about our – go ahead, Matt.
I mean, freshman quarterback on the road at Auburn. I mean, there's this pretty rough spot.
Yeah, no, it's the defense that'll win this game for Georgia, in my opinion. Let's talk about our plays of the week, though. So there's a lot of games that we've talked about, obviously, a lot of games that we don't like. What are your favorite plays on the week? Matt, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only one conviction play for me this week, and that's New England and Denver. I think this New England team, listen, you give Bill Belichick some time to prepare, and plus, like what we've seen from Denver, like I said, they cannot get first downs, which can't get that defense off the field. I mean, they just are so incredibly worn down by the time the third quarter rolls around that teams just go ham. And I think this New England team is going to do just that yet again. I don't care that it's on the road, and I don't care that the hook is in play there. I can easily see New England winning this game by 17 plus points. Joe, I love New England this week.
2 games for you this week, under Giants and San Francisco 49ers, 42.5 at Intertops. The Niners can't score. They're not going to be able to move the ball. We see this week after week. It's going to be the same game, in my opinion, that we saw against Arizona, 20-10, 23-13, playing the under there. The other game is going to be Buffalo +3. The +3 is available at Bovada, according to SBR odds. Love the spot. 10 days to get ready for this game. It's a non-conference matchup. The Saints have been outstanding, don't get me wrong, but this is just one of those spots where I can feel the pros are going to be on the Bills and the Joes are going to be all over the Saints because they saw the Bills last time out get beat on Thursday night against a bad Jets team.
Thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget to get over to SBRodds.com and see all of these lines in real time. Of course, all the books are there if you want to start clicking around and making your plays on the weekend. And, of course, the links are right below us as well, so that way you get easy access. And don't forget to rate and subscribe to this podcast. So thumbs up if you like what we're saying. Even if you don't like it, thumbs down is fine. Give us some comments. Tell us if you agree or disagree. Alongside Joe Fortenbaugh and Matt Brown, my name's Dave Farah. Thank you for watching and listening to the Play Action Podcast.